This video is intended to help you understand standard-based grading. This year at Elkhart High School, all teachers and staff are supposed to be implementing standard-based grading in our classrooms. So what is standard-based grading? Standard-based grading is a way for your students' grade to make sure that it is focused solely on are they mastering the skills and standards of the subject rather than are they behaving properly, are they turning things in on time, and things like that. So the focus is more on what is their skills in the class versus how is their behavior. So again, is behavior graded? Not necessarily. The goal is to separate academic work habits, behaviors, so that we know exactly, what your child is doing academically, but we are also looking at behaviors. So in our academies, we will be not only looking at what standards in different subjects your student needs to work on, but also what behaviors we might need to communicate to you, such as work ethic, or attendance, those things. So as an academy, although we will be tracking content-specific standards like in English, math, social studies, science, world language, things like that, we still will be looking at the ABCs, or attendance, behavior, and credit. So is your child attending school regularly? Are there any behaviors that are concerning, or are there any behaviors that are really strengths for them and that they're doing well? And is your student earning all their credits? So we will be looking at that. We will be still making sure your child is learning those skills, such as that jobs look for, like dependability and working on time and things like that. And we will be teaching them those, but we'll also be making sure their grade in their subject is measuring the skill and not behaviors. So how will your grade be determined in the class? So the student's grade will be dependent on ongoing assessments and other assignments that are allowing us to determine mastery of the standard. So we will be doing lessons and practices, but then students will be given certain maybe assignments or tests or quizzes that is directly measuring, do they know this skill? And your student will be told that this is an assignment that's measuring mastery rather than practice beforehand. So while the classwork or practice assignments may not be a huge factor in the grade, it is important because it helps them assist us as teachers and allows themselves too to see how are they doing with the standard. It allows them to get feedback so that they can revise to get better. And it does affect their grade a little bit, as we'll talk about in a few minutes. And especially in my class, in English, we will be, certain assignments will be as a measure of standard. So it might not look like a quiz or a test, but it will be measuring a standard, and the child will know that ahead of time. So, how will your grade be calculated? All assignments, tests, quizzes, everything will go into a category labeled classwork or practice, and these points will be 30% of your child's grade. The standards that we're measuring is a little more complicated, but the standards grades will be 70% of the grade. So I'm going to show you on a past Canvas course a little bit what this looks like, because it can be kind of confusing. So if we look at, let me go to a student view really quick, but if we look at this past Canvas course, if we look at grades, we're going to see this thing called learning mastery. So you can look at assignments, and you can see there's lots of assignments. All of these assignments go into classwork. There are a lot of different points. All of those points could add up to 400 points. That's weighted as 30% of the grade. But if we look at the learning mastery, now this is a website. This is a great place for your student to go and see their standards. These, I think on this class it was 8 standards, are 1 point each. These 8 points are going to be 70% of the child's grade. Now, if we look at them, this shows that all of these standards were opportunities for the student to show mastery. And this was when I was a little bit newer, so it might be less assignments now. But this one, for example, these were 4 assignments showing mastery. Now, how does a student show mastery? On an assignment, let's see, we'll go to one of these, for example. Here we go. On an assignment, they'll be told, or test or quiz, that it is for mastery. They will have a rubric on the assignment, usually just one. This one happened to have 2. 2 different questions had different standards. And there'll be a rubric here that we'll talk about in a little bit. But that is how it's graded, and that's how they'll show mastery. And there'll be feedback. So if your child gets a 2, 1, or 0, that means they need to revise. They're not showing mastery. And we'll give feedback in the comments as to what the child specifically needs to revise. They can come in, get help if they need it. We'll teach things if needed. And then when they get that 3, that's when they showed mastery. So once the child gets mastery, they show mastery, they'll get a point for that standard. So, for example, I'm gonna get out of student view. Once they show mastery, they'll get that point, and it will go in the grade book as that point. So, for example, if this student, so here, right here, it says mastered, they would get a point in the grade book for W 3.2. So it's a little confusing to start, but those 8 points by the end of the semester, the goal is to have 1s in all of those slots for the standards, because that will be weighted heavily. So you might see your child's grade fluctuate a lot. Maybe they didn't show mastery and we put in a standard, so their grade suddenly goes from an A to an F. That is normal, because your child will have an opportunity, and they'll have a very recent opportunity to make that standard up. Especially during advisory, we'll be using that time for students to make up standards. They'll have time in class to make up standards. So you might see their grade fluctuate a lot. And it's kind of scary to see your child who did all the classwork go from maybe a B, suddenly drop to an F. But they have all the way to the end of the semester to show mastery for that standard. If they don't, a 0 will be put in, but it can always be put back in as a 1 by the end of the semester if they show mastery by the end. So students, we do ask they show mastery of a standard more than once, so they will have tons of chances over the semester to show mastery for different standards, multiple assignments, multiple quizzes and tests, and they'll always have a chance to revise. Now there is like a decaying average, so say your child shows mastery on an assignment, on 2 assignments, but then suddenly doesn't on the 3rd, it will go down to not mastered, but again, we can have them revise and be regraded, and then it'll go back up to mastery again. So revision is key here, and that is one of the most difficult things for students to adjust to. So we'll be working with your student to help them. So again, revision is key. We're going to be giving feedback, reteaching, giving them time to revise. There'll be multiple chances to show mastery, and they can redo everything. At least in my class, for sure, they can redo anything till the end of the semester. And doing that practice and classwork really helps, as it really shows us what they need to work on and helps the students see what they need to work on. So even though the assignments you think might be weighted less, they're still as important. So here's that rubric I was talking about, 1 to 4, 1s and 2s, the students on their way to mastery, but not quite there. 3s is that sweet spot where the student has shown mastery, and that's where we want them to be. 4 is above and beyond mastery. So that would be if the student has shown mastery and then goes above and beyond to show skill that goes beyond where they should be at grade level. So we do see students get there, but 3 is really where we want them to be. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, but parent support is critical to this. So that's why I really want you guys to understand what's going on, because encouraging your student to complete practice work, to revise for their standards, that's what's going to be important, is so that we know where your student is, and now we're always working to get them to be able to master the skills that the course is designed for. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and we can talk about any questions, comments, or concerns that you may have. Thank you.